is...
In order that we may bring you the following WSFA TV News special. This is a live WSFA TV News special report. Annexation, your questions answered. An in-depth question and answer session with Mayor Emery Fulmer of Montgomery. Now here is your host, Bob Howell.
Good evening and welcome to our program concerning Montgomery's proposed annexation. During the course of this program, we'll be taking calls from those of you who have questions about the proposed extension of Montgomery city limits. Joining me tonight is my colleague Dennis Latham, who last night hosted a half-hour documentary dealing with annexation. Also in our studio tonight is the mayor of Montgomery, Mayor Emery Fulmer, who will be answering your questions. First of all, Mayor Fulmer, we'd like for you to give us a brief description of annexation, who will be involved, who will be voting on Tuesday, and how the votes will be counted in that voting on Tuesday.
All right, briefly, Bob, annexation is important to the city of Montgomery because Montgomery continues to grow, and we must be in control of the destiny of the city of Montgomery and be able to control the subdivision regulations and be able to determine what goes on around the city of Montgomery. We must have this annexation to be able to plan for orderly growth. In the vote on Tuesday, January the 23rd, every citizen in the county of Montgomery will be able to vote. The city limits, the people within the present city limits, and the balance of the unaffected county will be one voting unit. If they vote no, then the entire issue is dead. If they vote yes, that will open the door for three other elections that are taking place simultaneously: West Montgomery, South Montgomery, and East Montgomery. Each of the three voting units having the option to either come in or not come in. That's briefly it. I can continue if you like.
Fine. As I said earlier tonight, we're going to be taking questions for Mayor Fulmer, and you can call us now at this number, 281-2900. That's 281-2900 here in Montgomery. Please call now and give our operators your questions. Dennis Latham of our staff has spent quite a bit of time researching the question of annexation here in Montgomery and in other similar southern cities. And Dennis, in your preparation for last night's documentary, what were the objections that most people raised to the question of annexation?
I suppose the basic thing that the people were worried about that were outside of the city was that the taxes that they would be paying as a part of the city of Montgomery would be more than the charges they may pay for what they pay the man to pick up their garbage, or what they pay for water, or other services that would be taken over by the city. There were some who objected just on the grounds that they didn't want the city to grow any larger. They wanted to stay in the county. One person was just dead set against the growth of government at all. He didn't want the bureaucracy to get any larger. And generally, I think taxes and money that the people have to pay more is a basic objection that a lot of people have had to annexation.
Fine. I'm sure we'll get into more of that coming up later on in the program. Again, the number to call tonight here in Montgomery is 281-2900. We'll be taking your questions for annexation, and we'll continue in a moment.
Get set for a super sports weekend on TV 12 beginning Saturday at noon with a special edition of Auburn basketball with Coach Sonny Smith. And then at 12:30, it's exciting basketball action between Alabama and Auburn. More basketball on the schedule at 2:30 when USC meets the University of Texas. Saturday night at 6:30, it's two roads to the Super Bowl, an in-depth look at Franco Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys' Randy White. At 8 o'clock, O.J. Simpson hosts the Party of the Year, Super Bowl Saturday night, an all-star comedy salute to Super Bowl 13. Stay tuned at 10:30 for the Vitalis U.S. Olympic Invitational Track Meet. So it's guaranteed to be a super Saturday for sports. Super Sunday begins at 11:30 with highlights of the past NFL season on Sports World. The Super Bowl pregame festivities start at 1, and then at 3, Super Bowl 13 kicks off, pitting the Dallas Cowboys against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Enjoy a super weekend of sports right here on TV 12.
Thank you. We're live in our studios tonight with Mayor Emery Falmer. We're talking about annexation, and we're taking your questions for Mayor Falmer at 281-2900. We hope that you'll call and give us your questions, and we'll begin to answer those in just a moment. But Mayor Falmer, you have a response to the fact that, and again, let me say that we are not taking a side either way for or against annexation. We're simply presenting an opposing point of view as was related to us by constituents in the city of Montgomery. Now, your response to the question of taxes and money and more government.
Well, first of all, I too am opposed to more government. I think that the least government is the best government. But we do have to have orderly growth and orderly planning. In response to the proposition about taxes, there will be no city taxes levied in any of the proposed annexed area until they have all of the basic 7 city services. And so it could be several years before anyone would have to pay any taxes, any city taxes because of annexation. But there should be a significant reduction in fire insurance rates that probably will more than offset any additional and ad valorem taxes that anybody might have to pay. So I think it will more than wash itself out as far as expenses are concerned.
Fine, thank you. Here's our first question. What streets mark the boundary on the north edge of town?
All right. On this map, the annexation map, the northern boundary shown in green is the section line just north of Hunter Station. And on the far side, it is the section line just north of Madison Park Community.
Okay, our next question, if Hope Hall on Wadston Road will be affected by annexation down to the south of the city?
The southern extremity of the proposed annexation is the section line just south of the Montgomery Airport, which is the section line above the Hope Hall interchange, which would mean that it would not be in the city limits but would be in the police jurisdiction.
Fine. Another question dealing with the south side of town. How far down US 31 will the city limits go with annexation, and how far down Lamar Road?
All right. Again, the same answer to the same question. It is the section line that is the next section line below the Montgomery Airport, which is about a mile north of the Hope Hall interchange going across. So it would be this section line that is about a mile above the Hope Hall interchange.
A viewer asked, says, we live in a subdivision off Virginia Loop Road between Peter Crump School and Brubaker School. Their children are zoned for Harrison on Southern Boulevard. What effect will annexation have on school zoning for this area?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay, moving right along. If the southern boundary is taken into consideration, what will be done about Catoma Creek, including water backup?
Catoma Creek is something that is going to have to be dealt with for the drainage in all and south of East Montgomery to drain properly. Hopefully at some time we will be able to get the tributaries that come into Catoma Creek and get Catoma Creek properly channelized so that it will drain properly into the river. This is a monumental task, a task that will take Corps of Engineer help.
Okay, more questions now. Will the Arrowhead area be included in annexation?
To the east, the east boundary is the half-section line contiguous to Auburn University at Montgomery. Arrowhead is not inside that line but would continue to be in the police jurisdiction.
Okay. What would be your policy on the leash law for dogs in the newly incorporated area?
If the area comes into the city limit, the present ordinances, all ordinances dealing with any law in the city of Montgomery would be applicable to the annexed area.
Fine. Dennis, you have a question?
I noticed there are a lot of questions about will this be in, will this be out, what section, and so forth. How did you originally come up with these boundaries? Did you have provisions to go further or closer in?
Well, it would have been very nice to go further and so forth, but I have such tremendous respect for Dr. Funderburk and the contribution that the Auburn at Montgomery campus means to the city of Montgomery. They were concerned about the interchange by AUM and how it would be affected. And they were competing for funds to get that. And while they wanted to come in, the easiest way to get the interchange was to stay outside of the city limits, because the funds in the city would have been harder to come by. So we stopped at that boundary. Also, the practical consideration of how much we could digest within a reasonable period of time was another factor. And another thing was to make sure we could design a plan that the Justice Department would accept, which meant that we had to have the proper racial balance bringing it in, or the Justice Department wouldn't accept it. So all of those factors had to be into the consideration of where the lines were drawn.
That has been another question that has been raised. What type of effect will this annexation have on the black percentage of population in Montgomery?
The present population of blacks in the city of Montgomery is approximately 34%. We designed a annexed area that would maintain that same racial balance between white and black, which the area that is proposed will bring in 34.5% black, so there will be no change whatsoever in the racial balance of the city of Montgomery.
We touched briefly on the election on Tuesday, and now I'd like for you to take a little more time and explain the fact that if the city itself, the non-affected city and the non-affected county outside, the current city and the current county without the annexed areas, if they vote down annexation, then the vote in the rest of the area wouldn't be nil.
That is correct. There are 4 voting units, and they were set up so that the city of Montgomery, as it is now constituted, shown in the red boundary line here, that plus the balance of the unaffected county or the unannexed area is 1 voting unit. If they vote yes, it activates the votes in West, South, and East Montgomery. And then each of those 3 areas have the option of coming in or not coming in. If the city of Montgomery and the balance of the county vote no, no matter what happens in any of the other 3 areas, the issue is dead.
So we could have any combination of the 3 areas coming in if the city and the unaffected county vote yes?
Yes. Our original proposal was that it all be yes or no. The entire proposed annexed area either come in or not come in. But in the legislative process, amendments were made to it in the legislature that divided it into the 3 voting areas. So it is conceivable that South could come in, East stay out, West come in, or any combination thereof.
We're taking your questions live at 281-2900. How much will it cost the city if annexation goes through, and will the city lose money, and will this have to be paid in the form of higher taxes?
Well, we costed the program out over a period of time. We think that over a period of, at the end of about a 5-year period, that the new taxes in the areas that are growing so around the city and with businesses that have been left out of the city limits and so forth, that probably it will increase the revenues of the city a net gain of approximately $1 million per year. Now, as far as the cost is concerned, we are already providing police and fire protection in the entire annexed area. Now, we can move at whatever speed we think that our budget can stand it without any additional taxes to provide the services in these areas. The Water and Sewer Board, the city of Montgomery, is a separate agency and perform their services out of the profits of the water services that they sell and through federal grants. So there will be no charge to the taxpayer for the water and sewer lines. We are confident that we can, over a period of time, digest this with no additional charge or tax to the taxpayer.
Another question from a viewer: if annexation is voted in, will there be any more councilmen added to the city council, and if so, how many?
No. The plan would be to, after the 1980 federal census, would be to take the total number of the population in the now city of Montgomery, divide by 9, which is the number of council members that we presently have, take those council areas, take the number that is the quotient of the division of 9 into the population, and design 9 council districts around that population figure.
A question that was asked by a friend of mine last night who lives outside the city limits, who lives a very short distance from the city limits itself. He says, what benefit will he gain since at the present time He pays $6 to have his garbage picked up by a private individual, and if he calls the police department right now, they come and check on his problem.
Well, there's a growing concern in many cities across the country and several in Alabama about the inner city or the main city continuing to provide services for those who are outside the city. And I would say to that person, a vote yes for annexation will ensure that a Montgomery black and white police cruiser will come on call, or a fire truck, or a paramedic will come when necessary. Because there are many cities in Alabama right now who refuse to respond to calls outside the city limits. And a vote yes for annexation will ensure that, and also ensure that in the neighborhood where he has built, that proper zoning and proper building practices will continue. This is the main thing, that there will not be a less of a quality of building and so forth.
And speaking of the police department, a viewer would like to know if the area annexed here increases the city by, 78 miles? I mean, 78 square miles. What about police patrols and fire patrols, since there's currently a shortage of police officers now?
There is indeed a shortage of police officers at this time, and we recognize that, but that still doesn't alter the fact that we answer calls in Arrowhead, which is way outside the proposed annexation. We answer them in Pinedale. We answer them in Hunter Station. We answer them all over this area now. So the effect on our manpower will be nil. We're already doing this. What we're saying, though, is that perhaps that we may have to re-examine our position, and if people don't want to come in the city limits, then perhaps we should study the policies of some of the other cities that have curtailed their service at the city limits. But as far as manpower strain, it will be no more strain on the police or fire department because they answer calls in this area now.
Are you, as the mayor, satisfied with the quality of service you're rendering in those areas with the current staff?
Negative, because in English Village and South Lawn, we have had fires that when a fire unit got there, it had only the water that it had in its truck, and we would almost get the fire suppressed and then watch the house burn completely to the ground because there are no fire plugs there. Same in other areas. We had one on Wares Ferry Road that's outside of the city limits. The quality of the respond time is the same, and the quality of the quantity of the service is the same. It's just that many of these people don't have fire plugs or street lights or any of the services that are available in the city limits.
Dennis?
You mentioned the fire plugs and the fire department response time. If the annexation goes through, what plans are there for fire stations and maybe some police precincts in the area, since we will be more than doubling the size of the city?
Well, the fire station on Cleveland Avenue, it's been the subject of discussion for several years, with the possibility of moving it out on the Selma Highway, somewhere in the vicinity of the Western Electric plant. It would give better response time, run time to many of the areas in southwest Montgomery. There's already a need for another fire station right now just by the Eastdale Mall area, somewhere in that area. Those would be the only two that we would contemplate any changes on at this time. I have been an advocate of police precinct stations for some time, well before I ran for the council seat some 3.5 years ago. But at the present time, due to a lack of funds, we have not been able to do that, but we have been able to cover it by real good police patrolling.
And again, we're taking your questions live at 281-2900. This program is live at this time. A viewer would like to know, Mayor, how much influence have Montgomery realtors had in the annexation proposition?
Well, Montgomery realtors, of course, by their nature, interested in real estate, and we're talking about real estate. They are interested in it just as school teachers are interested in schools, or just as anybody is interested in anything. But the realtors have no influence whatsoever as far as the basic proposition, because this is something that has been in the study plan at the city of Montgomery for several years. I welcome the realtors' support. I welcome everybody's support for annexation, but as far as any undue influence, none.
For people outside the city limits, but in an area to be annexed, who are on REA, or rural electrification, will Alabama Power Company take over the electrical service if they're taken into the city?
No, they will not. I have had discussions with representatives of the Alabama Power Company and with the REA. My position is that annexation should not upset the present balance between the two. Now, if a legislative act is passed that causes something to change, that would be beyond my control. But as far as the number of customers that REA has or Alabama Power Company has, as far as I'm concerned, they would come in on the same basis that they're presently operating.
Here's a question that may be slightly technical, which we may not have time to give the exact figures on. A person would like to know, what are the increases in dollars and cents for a homeowner living in a $35,000 home in South Lawn, and what will the decrease in fire insurance be? I don't know.
Well, I'll let them do the arithmetic, so we can probably answer everybody's question. The tax, the city tax, is $1.25 per assessed $100 of valuation, whatever the Board of Equalization sets as a value. Then you take the number of hundreds of dollars in that, multiply it by $1.25, and that is the city tax that would be added. Depending on the length of run time from a fire plug, the decrease in fire insurance rate could be as much as 40 to 50%.
Depending on the location.
That's correct. And we intend to cause fire plugs to be put in South Lawn and in English Village and wherever we can, wherever there's water lines. We have been assured by the Water and Sewer Board that they will move in a hurry to put those in. Then the city of Montgomery will pick up the cost of those fire plugs.
Fine. We're taking your questions live at 281-2900. We'll be back with more of your questions in a moment.
Right now, take advantage of huge pre-inventory clearance sale savings at Rhodes. Later this month, Rhodes
Questions, which we're taking now at 281-2900. We'll be here until about 8 o'clock tonight. We hope that you'll call, and we'll try to get as many questions in as possible. Mayor Falmer, an interesting question has been raised by a person who lives on the very outside area of the proposed annexation. This person wants to know, can he get into the city of Montgomery?
Well, the civil rights laws prohibit a gerrymandering of lines, and so we had to follow section lines basically, and hopefully as the city grows we will be able to grow some more, and in a future annexation take care of that person. Delighted that they want to come in.
A person lives in a Waugh, Alabama subdivision. Will annexation take in Waugh, and will city services be included?
No, Waugh is outside the proposed annexed area and also outside the police jurisdiction.
A viewer asked, will security within the city limits suffer due to a shortage of police in order to cover the whole area?
No, because we are presently covering the entire proposed annexed area. We are short of police officers, and we do need some more police officers, but our police officers are doing a great job, and it will not cause any dilution of that manpower.
A viewer asked, on lots at County Downs, will there be any street lights installed if annexation is approved?
Yes.
Let's see, that's a political question there for after the election. What should the entire city of Montgomery have, why should the entire city of Montgomery have to vote on a problem that concerns only people in the area to be annexed? And that's a good question.
Well, because the people of the city of Montgomery should be able to determine whether they want these people as their neighbors or not. Bishop Barron, Senator Barron, and I, when we were proposing this legislation, said if the people of the city of Montgomery did not want this, then it should not be put upon them. And I think that the basic fair play comes into play here, that they should have the right to decide.
More questions. Explain the cost of water and sewage from the road frontage and from the road to the residents and to the residents in the annexation.
All right. The Water and Sewer Board of the city of Montgomery is a separate entity created by the legislature over which neither the mayor nor the city council has any direct control. But the Water and Sewer Board have promised me, and we have the map should we want to get into it in more detail, that they will provide the trunk lines for both the sanitary sewer and the water lines throughout the annexed area. Now, what they will charge to bring the lines to the house from the right-of-way, I'm not sure what that will be. But the Water and Sewer Board will provide the basic trunk line services throughout the annexed area.
A viewer asked, there is no clear definition of when the property owner has obtained the 7 city services. The Act only states the services would be equivalent to those of present city residents. How close are the water lines to being run to the actual residences?
Well, there are some areas that the water and sewer lines are already there. There are other areas that it will take several years for the Water and Sewer Board to complete the lines into the area. We have a map here, Bob, that shows the water lines and the sewer lines in the proposed area. If you can follow this green line around, you will see that this area is covered with different colored lines representing the water lines and the sewer lines in this area. It should be within 3 to 5 years that the entire area would have the availability of water and sanitary sewer services.
And again, I don't want to be repetitious in these questions, but we are strictly taking questions from our viewers tonight, and so please bear with us. Will property owners of the city of Montgomery who are already in the city have to pay for the 7 benefits, and how much will the real estate developers benefit?
Well, that's several part questions.
Yes.
First of all, the city of Montgomery taxpayers are presently paying for the fire service and the police service in the proposed annexed area. And it's, I think, proper that those people in the proposed annexed area, if they are to continue to receive those services, come into the city, let us provide them all the services, and then they pay their fair share. As far as real estate developers profiting by this, that certainly is not my motive, although I'm sure that as Montgomery grows, houses and apartments will be built, shopping centers will be built, and I would suppose that they will make some money from it. I would certainly hope that our housing industry prospers.
Now, again, we are live in our studios. You may phone in your questions at 281-2900. We have quite a backlog of questions right now that we're working through, and we're going to try our very best to get through as many of them as possible. And let me say at this time, we certainly appreciate your response to our questions on annexation tonight. Will city bus services be extended into the new area?
At some time. At the present time, we do not have enough buses to completely cover the area, all of Montgomery. But our bus lines are doing well, and as the area grows and service becomes, the likelihood of service profitability comes in, we will certainly begin to service those areas. But we wouldn't send a bus out to an area that we didn't think would produce enough revenue to partly offset its cost.
Why were the initial boundaries changed from what was first proposed as the new city limits so as not to include the property owned by a Montgomery real estate developer such as the Hope Hull Industrial Park?
Well, that's just not so. Has no semblance or resemblance with the truth. This has been raised a time or two by some people who are opposed to annexation, but the line for the proposed annexation has always been the section line south of the airport. It has never been proposed at any time in the proposed area of the Hope Hull Industrial Park, and besides, that area will be owned by the city of Montgomery and the Industrial Development Board and not by a private developer.
More questions. It appears that there would not be too many changes in taxes when people outside the city have to pay. Will they have to pay building and well permits?
Well, they will, when they come into the city, they will again be subject to all city ordinances and all city protection. And any ordinance that is on the books now affecting the city of Montgomery would affect the new area upon annexation becoming effective.
what would be the cost to landowners to have utility lines put in across their property and other services such as sewage?
Well, the basic trunk lines, as we've shown on this map here, will be put in at no charge to the citizens other than the basic taxes that they have paid or the charges they have paid to the Water and Sewer Board for water and sewer service. Now, when somebody wants to develop a piece of property, then they will have to pay for the cost of putting in the sewer lines and water lines themselves. If they just want water or sewer service, they would just pay the basic charge for the connection, which is nominal.
Here are a series of questions dealing with certain areas around the city and whether or not they will be in the annexed area, so we'll just fire these off quickly.
Okay.
Pecan Grove and other areas around Sunshine Village and the Eastern Bypass, are they in the city or will they be included in the annexation? Could we have the other map, please, Alex? We'll take a look at this now.
All right, if you look at the Eastern Bypass, which is in the northeast corner of this map, you see that Pecan Grove is in the city limits, but the Sunshine Village trailer area, all of those businesses just outside of the red line there have been deliberately over the years left out of the city limits. We've seen that in other areas where businesses have been deliberately left out so that they wouldn't pay their share of the taxes. Pecan Grove is presently in the trailer park, and that area along the Eastern Bypass is out.
Okay. Another question, why is the northern section, I assume they're referring to the northwestern section, why is this being left out?
Well, this area is all floodplain. All of this area is a part of the river bottom, and it will never be built on because it is so subject to flood. And the city of Montgomery did not want to have to pick up this extra area of interstate highway to patrol when we have all we can say grace over here. So we followed the river line with the proposed annexation.
Is Bellwood Plantation included in the plan for the eastern area?
Bellwood Plantation is just on the eastern line, just inside the eastern line, and would be in the proposed annexed area.
Is Bell Road going to be incorporated into the city limits?
Bell Road will be inside the city inside the proposed annexed area. Yes, it will.
Okay. Will the southern boundary include McGinnis Road and Virginia Loop Road in the annexed boundary?
Yes, it goes a half a mile south of Pinedale.
Will Country Estates on the Old Selma Road be affected?
Here's Country Estates in this area here, and